Yo, yo, welcome back. This is my 8.6 Blackout. It's my secondary hunting rifle. It is a Defiance action there with a Faxum barrel, chambered at A6 at a 12-inch, and then a 7-inch 46 hybrid suppressor. We got a Sig Tango MSR LVPO, and then I have a Trigger Tech flat face trigger there. This is one of my favorite rifles to use while out hunting. I've had it now for 3 years when A6 first was announced back at SHOT Show. And of course, I got super curious about it because I love the 300 Blackout. Now, this really isn't a rifle video. I just wanted to showcase what this project is. The main thing that we're looking at today is the Sig Sauer scope here and discussing some R&D that I have done to make this scope better. That R&D comes into play with the Centauri carbon 3D printer that I did an unboxing review a few months ago, and now I have over 100 plus hours on that thing. So I kind of wanted to do an update, not just on the printer, but just on what I've been able to do with the printer. I want to take the scope off, and I'm going to show you what we're working with here. Now, usually when you're removing a scope and you're going to put it back on, you do want to reconfirm your zero. I have found, though, that if I have the same torque specs down, which is 65 inches per this scope mount, then my zero has stayed very, very, very consistent. R&D that I want to show here today, the scope cap right here. This turret, if you're new to firearms or precision shooting or even long-range shooting, you may not know, but the turret here is what you adjust your elevation and or your windage to have your projectile fly, not really further, but to adjust for that distance that what you're shooting. Most of my guns here are sighted into 100 yards. For the majority of my hunting seasons, those shots are anywhere between 100 yards to 500 yards is what I'm comfortable as a hunter shooting at. Last year, my longest shot was at 495 yards on a whitetail, and it dropped dead in its tracks where I hit it at. That is my comfortability range. That is going to be different between everybody. I do a lot of recreational shooting on the side, and I am always tinkering and adjusting my loads. I do hand loading as well. I'm comfortable shooting at those distances. With the A6 here, and if you don't know what A6 is pretty much a 6.5 Creedmoor case, which a 6.5 Creedmoor is going to be 0.264 in your diameter or 6.5 millimeters. But it's a 6.5 Creedmoor case, neck down to receive a 338 projectile. So this would be it right there. This particular cartridge that I loaded is a 225 grain Barnes TTSX. Again, back on the scope here. Now, the scope here, you can see that we have our adjustments here on top. When you're on the rifle and you're looking at through your scope and say I have my rangefinder and I ranged an animal, it is at 290 yards, 350-ish yards. Now, with the data that I've done using the Athlon Rangecraft Pro here, is that tells me my velocity of what that bull is going at. And then from there, I take that velocity and I put it into a calculator and I put in some other data, barrel twist, my scope height from my barrel to the actual center line of the scope, or I guess technically it's the center line of the bolt face to the center line of the scope. And then just some other miscellaneous data that you put in there, and it spits out a chart, and that chart is your ballistic chart or your dope chart. Now that dope chart will go from 200 yards all the way down to 500 or 800 yards, depending on how much data you want to really input and have at hand. Most of the time, I cut my data off at 600 yards because that is, again, my comfortability range. Shooting is 500. I have not shot things at 600 yards yet, but I feel pretty confident I could if I had to. Not that I would really want to. The issue here with this scope is that when you're looking down your scope, like I was discussing, and if I were to range an animal, and then it would say 300 yards, then I would need to look over and on top of this right here, and then do my adjustments as such, which I don't like doing because all my other scopes I can look at the scope itself, and on the side of the turret right here is a number system, and that number system tells me what I need to turn that turret to dial up for that elevation or down. The Sig MSR, this is a 1x8x24 LVPO scope. Now, this guy does not have that ability to adjust or to make those changes on the fly. You could obviously turn this as you would need to, but again, you're having to look up, and I don't like taking my cheek off my stock when I don't have to. What I did is I did a plethora of R&D here. That's not GPS, we don't need that guy in there. And a lot of different prints here have been tried and been trying to figure out which one to use and to go with. The majority of material is either resin, PA6CF, or PETG. I'm discussing this because I want to discuss 3D printing and why it has been proven to be a great tool for individuals like myself that can do a lot of R&D and then down the line do something of a professional grade. I have done a lot of R&D with measurements of the turret right here, and then its depth, its width, and then having to use other calculators to make a ballistic chart and or band that I can then tape onto a turret that I have printed out. So this is about, what do we have here? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I've done roughly 12 prints to get to where I am comfortable with this. And I have tried a few things as far as doing side set screws, like on this one right here. If you can see in there, there's a few little holes. And then on the side, I have little bitty Allen key set screws that would then go on top of this turret. And then I could then crank an Allen-wrench key on all three to combine a compressed fitting to where I could then turn this dial as I would need to. On the outside of the dial is going to be a tape like this. And this goes anywhere from 100 yards to 800 yards. This is just the data that was outputted for me whenever I used this. I use CTS tapes. I'll put a link in the description below for everything in here. If you're curious or if you're into any kind of long range shooting or you want to try something like this on your own. They sent me 3 tapes or 4 tapes really. One I used for R&D and I destroyed. And then this one right here is going to be my next tape that I will be using. The issue now is that I don't really like the set screw idea on the side because it's going to apply a weird tension. And then also when I put the tape on, I have to have a hole drilled through the tape so I can down the line unscrew those, and then if I had to redo my 0, I can then take this off and then recenter it to where I wanted that 0 to be. That really didn't work out too well. What we're gonna do today, and this is gonna be very cringe for some of you guys out there, but I did a center hole here on this print, and that center hole is gonna be centered to this top right here. And what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna do a slight drill through the actual turret right there, thread that to a whatever screw I can find of a small enough threading that can be long from here to go all the way down into the actual area right here to then hold this turret in place like it would a standard scope turret. Then we can then have a turret that we can then look with the tape and then do adjustments. Now you can hear the adjustments here. So that's what I want. So this is very snug fitting, but however, if I'm out in the field and this is on my back and via sling, and if this is rubbing against a backpack strap or part of my backpack or my clothing, this has a potential to pop off and then I will lose it. So that's why I'm going to be drilling a small hole right through the top of that. Not all the way through, obviously, but just enough to where I can get maybe 4 to 5 little bits of threading so that I can then mount a screw through here, and then I can then be able to have this set in place. I think I'm going to put this file on my Colts web or my Colts page. If any of you guys are out there and you do have a Tango MSR scope that you do kind of want to try this with, again, doing this more than likely will probably void the warranty because you're going to be drilling a hole into your cap here. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I have this little Picatinny rail mount here that I'm going to put in my vise. And my vise is fairly level. Here we're going to be using this level right here. So we are a little high. I'm just going to adjust this as close as we can get it. That way when we drill this, there we go. I like that. That is fairly level there. And then we're going to go this way, check it, and we are good to go. Now, I do have a drill press, but it is not with me. It is at my work. I'm just going to be using a hand drill. And I will do slow little drills here and there to make sure that we are not going to punch through the entire scope. So with any pre-drilling that you ever do, we are going to use the smallest drill bit that we have, and this guy is 1/16. Now that little center hole there looks pretty dead on. I'm going to go ahead and put the cap back on and go down a tad bit more. So I'm sure you saw that, but the drill just popped down. Now there is another layer down below this front piece right here, so I did not go all the way through and puncture my crosshairs. We're going to confirm all that here in a second, but from here we can actually pick out a screw now and start threading that hole. So which is nice that it kind of has a gap in there to add some thread in there. Well, I don't have a tap this small. I have a 6x32, but not an M2. So we're just going to use the screw itself to thread. We're going to back it out, go down a few more. Down the line, I will go get a proper thread. And I'm sure this is probably going to make some of you guys out there just pull your hair out, go super mad at me, but you know what? It's my scope. If I break it, it's my problem. The good thing about aluminum is it's soft, so this being a steel screw is able to cut those threads as I need it to. And I can actually see them forming inside. We're going to stop there, and I'm going to grab my cap that I had. We're going to put the screw in the cap like such. That way I can then know how big of a screw I need. Now I can pull that, and it's not coming up, and I'm giving it a good pull force there. And as long as whenever I turn this, we can see we indeed are gripping properly, and that is not coming up. That is very, very nice. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my vise. Now what that's going to give me the ability to do is where I can then pop over my scope caps, and then I can come down and look through my scope and then adjust the turret. And I have a fixed point on my garage door over there where I can look at the scope. And as I turn my turret, I should be able to see my reticle go up or down, ensuring that I did not break my crosshairs in the inside. So up is clockwise. All right, we're good there. I like it. We're good. And then let's check windage. Now windage I'm not too concerned about. I'm not going to do it for windage because I rarely adjust for windage. I will do a holdover instead because windage is one of those things where it's continually changing. Then back down to left. Windage is good. We did not break anything in the scope. Now, if we're worried about weatherproofing, what I can do is I can put a little screw hole or a little weather sealant like silicone down the line on where that screw hole is going to sit at. So what I also might do is, oh, hang on. What I also might do is I might, inside of the screw here, let me go to my Allen wrench again, is I might put a spring underneath this screw and then make my 3D design here a little bit deeper. That way, if I want to, I could raise up, and then this would raise off the screw hole here. The spring would then be compressed, and then I could then free spin this to reset my zero instead of having to unscrew my screw all the way out and then reset that zero. That is how some higher end scopes have it, is where this is on a spring. You pull this turret up and then you can adjust this without actually adjusting your windage or your elevation. And then you set it back down to your new zero. Put my tape on. To do that, we're just going to go ahead and take this off. And we're going to start at the 8 there, back to that seam. There it is. We're going to put that seam of the 8 right before the 8, right there. And I'm going to make this as flush as I can to the top. Peeling this back as I spin it, just like I would a Band-Aid, putting a Band-Aid on. Not that I ever use Band-Aids, so. But for you guys that may use Band-Aids, you may have more experience of this than I do. That is how that tape goes on. Again, these are from CTS. I'll put a link in the description below. It was like $30 for 3 tapes and then a little dope chart. So kind of expensive, but they are laminated. They are weatherproof. Time will tell up here in the cold environment that I'm in, the cold, wet environment. So usually applying a little bit of heat to the underside of tapes, or as you're rotating them, kind of that friction like I'm doing here, usually can warm up that glue enough to make it adhere better. Yeah, that's how that's going to look. like such. That is how that turned out. You see there. And now I should be able to rotate this and click this as much as I want. So for instance, if I range an animal or a target out at 400 yards, I would just take this and then go all the way to 4, and then now I am dialed up for 400 yards. So that is how turret systems work on scopes. The Sig LVPO, this is the, again, the Tango MSR LVPO. It's a great scope. I like it a lot. I think that Sig could have done a little bit more on the turret systems for guys that like to dial up and stuff. So this is the fix, and hopefully down the line somewhere Sig will see this video and then they will just add a threaded hole on top so you can add in your own custom turret. And again, I will put this design on my Colts if you guys are interested in this, or if you want to learn anything more about kind of scope and turret systems, just shoot me a message down below in the comments, or join my Discord. We have a little pew section down there where we discuss firearms, hunting, and all sorts of fun stuff, more down the hobbies of the stuff outside of radio. I thought this would be a kind of a off video from what your guys are usually used to watching, and I just wanted to share this little R&D that I have been working on for the past few weeks now to get this where I wanted to get it to. I'm very happy with it. Maybe what I can do is I can have a CNC company, I can send them this file, and then I can have them CNC me an actual aluminum turret how I want it. And then I can anodize it myself to match, hopefully, this kind of burnt bronze here. But that's the side design there. Yeah, I'm happy with how it turned out. Can't complain, really. It looks pretty good in my opinion. I think that's really it for this video. If you guys found this stuff interesting, let me know. And yeah, I appreciate your time as always. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.